Hello, everyone. My name is Brody Johnson with MCFC, and I'm speaking with someone very special. Most of the time when we do these interviews, I would have them say their name, but most of the people know their name. I'm Michelle Watterson. How are you?
I am amazing. Excuse my house, we're under construction, so this is me. You're gonna get all of me. So
Perfect. Well, you were talking about permits and all that fun stuff before we got on. Real quick, it's got to be fun to build your own house and deal with that all kind of fun stuff in the middle of being an MMA fighter and training and stuff.
yeah, we always have our hands in a bunch of different things. Our home
Mhm.
right now it was already up before, but we are remodeling it. But definitely outside of our own construction, we have a new build going up that we're hopefully gonna sell very soon, and that's really exciting. My husband Josh is kind of the one that's the heading the charge on that, but I get to do the fun stuff like buy all the interior um fixture that put together the color schemes and stuff like that. So it's nice to have something outside of MMA to have a focus on.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. So you're going to be commentating for us April 27th. I didn't really ask you before this. Have you done commentating before? And are you excited? Because I sure am.
I really am, and I have done commentating before, and I really do
Okay.
enjoy it. So I've done commentating, I've done analysts, I've been, a guest judge, I've kind of done it all. But to be honest with you, I
Okay.
really enjoy commentating because it is live. I don't
Hmm.
have to make any I don't have to make any accusations. I don't have to guess. I don't have to look off the stats. I just don't enjoy doing that because as a fighter, I hate it when people prejudge me before I step inside the octagon. And I don't want to prejudge any of these fighters. We all have our records and we all have our specialties, but it's MMA, and we should be watching the story, the art as it unfolds in front of us, and be able to commentate on what's unfolding in front of us. And that's what I really love and enjoy doing.
Hmm. Well, you're speaking like a true pioneer. I listened, in preparation for a couple interviews, and I've heard you being referred to that, and that's exactly what you are. Um, eh, what is it? Is it now? Well, gosh, is it now 16 years doing this professionally?
17, a little over 17.
17. Oh,
Yes.
there you go. Nice. I was about to say those numbers I'm struggling with too, apparently.
Yeah, definitely. I'm fighting for a long time, and I'm very fortunate to say that, I'm still at the top. I'm still fighting with the best of them, and I can't complain.
Can't complain. Nice. Well, so it's got to be kind of weird to be switching roles and stuff like that. Most of the time, if this is the first time you ever done it, I'd really dive into it. But you've already done it before. Is it? Gosh, is it fun to kind of break people down and stuff like that? I mean, you come from such a big gym, and you guys have been doing it for such a long time, and so many people have come through. It's got to be really nice having this experience for a job like this.
Well, I always tell people that if when you become a professional fighter, there are a couple things you can do to level up, right?
Hmm.
And it's the small things that a lot of people don't realize. When you teach, you level yourself up because you have to be able to break down moves and explain them in the most simplest forms. And when you do that, that kind of reiterates like all these moves within your own mind. So teaching
Hmm.
is a great way to level up um, anybody's competitive nature, I guess. And then also, I would say commentating and analyzing is another way because you're forced to watch tape. You're forced to kind of cast a wide net across all the different weight classes. Because usually, when you're a fighter, um, you tend to zero in and focus on your weight class and your division
Hmm.
because that those are the people that you're going to be fighting. But when you have to study all the different weight classes from the littles to the heavyweights,
Hmm.
you start to see underlying reoccurrences of things that work, of things that don't work, and you can implement those in your own game as an active fighter. And so I always tell people that even if you're not commentating or um, being an analyst, it's always good uh, to kind of study all sorts of different types and variety of fighters, because you do level up when you do that.
Step back from the forest and see the trees a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. My wrestling coach would say trim the fat all the time, like teaching people and stuff like that. We would do a lot of like young kids stuff, like you were saying. Teaching kids, I can imagine, helps a lot. Like, okay, what are we going to do here, step by step? Doing that for a long time, but with kids and stuff like, you really got to simplify it, really trim the fat and stuff like that, especially when learning.
Yeah, for sure. And if you can teach it, if you can simplify it, then you can add. You can always add. So.
Nice. Well, like I said, you're going to be here April 27th. I just have a question though. I'm such a Midwesterner, and I have to know: have you been to Minnesota before?
Have I been to Minnesota? Oh, gosh, I don't know if I have. I mean, I fought all over the place, and I have fought in different places, but I honestly I can't think of a time when I've been to Minnesota. I can't.
There'd only be like two cities, because God forbid it'd be Mayo and Rochester, where I am, and then maybe Minneapolis, and that'd be it.
Yeah, I don't think I have, so I'm excited. Excited to be out there.
Well, you're coming at a good time. If you came now, it's the middle of March and it's 70 degrees.
That
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I replaced windows outside for a living, and I'm replacing windows in a shirt sometimes. It doesn't really make sense. Doesn't really make sense at all. So we have a lot of pro fighters on the card and amateurs. Have you commentated both before? I personally, I have experience of doing our one event last year, and it was really, for being a person who's watching MMA every single weekend, boxing, one championship, all that kind of fun stuff. It was really weird. I'm usually in circles where I'm usually the person that knows quite a bit,
right? And
being there and with a mic in my hand at times, like, wow, sometimes I'm off the beaten path. Like, I didn't know certain positions and things. So it was really an eye-opening experience for me. And I was kind of wondering the same thing. Like, did you have that commentating? I wanted to ask, like, what is it just like switching roles, because it's kind of, it's, I don't know. It's kind of an odd thing to do at times, because I've heard Dominic Cruz talk about it, but kind of stepping out and being really, really, well, he's the most analytical person in combat sports, I'd probably say. But yeah, I guess, hey, did you notice any differences between amateur and pro when doing that kind of stuff? Like commentating?
I guess when you talk about how you were observing the fights, I just feel like every commentator has their own style, and like you said, Dominic Cruz is super analytical. But DC and Bisping, they kind of sit back, and it's more locker talk for them. And I kind of gravitate towards that kind of commentating, because when I watch a fight, like I'm watching it as a fighter. I'm not trying to change who I am. Like, I'm watching it as a fighter, like, dang, that was an awesome takedown. I would have never thought of that, but he did it with the right timing, and I'm just gonna step into the commentating role as a fighter and not try to be anything else. I'm gonna talk to the audience. I'm gonna talk to you just like I would talk to any of my teammates watching the fights. Like, dang, did you just see that? Or holy moly, I've never seen that move before. What was that? Can let's rewind that, because I think it's just the most genuine. And if you can relate to the audience in the most genuine way, that's the best commentators that I've known.
Off the cuff.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, for sure. Well, that's awesome. So, I like I said, before we started, I was looking a lot of Invicta stuff, and I just randomly stumbled upon the Jessica Panay fight, and I would like to know, I don't think I've ever heard this before, and I gotta admit, I feel like I've listened to a lot of Michelle Watterson interviews, Perks of MMA Fighting, MMA Junkie, and stuff. What was it like? Because I'm 29 years old, and I was really young at the time, and just slightly out of high school.
Right. I think that Invicta in general was a very pivotal promotion for me. I remember before Invicta picked me up, I had just gotten pregnant. And then there was this huge promotion that was only promoting female fighters. And I thought, wait, oh my gosh, how cool is that? Like, You don't have to jock for position. Every single person on the fight card are females. Like, how cool is that? And they freaking brought the heat. Every single competitor for Invicta was treated as a serious athlete, and they came and they showed heart, they showed technique, they showed grit, they showed the ability to have knockout power, they showed the ability to have submissions. And so I think it really put female MMA on the map, in a way that it hadn't been looked at before, in a way that people could actually take female fighters seriously. And so I kind of felt like, dang, did I miss the boat? And then I had my daughter, and um, I had one fight after I had my daughter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of dipped my feet back into it. And after I won that fight, I was like, I want to fight for Invicta. So, we reached out to them and they brought me on. They were really excited to have me. And then I had one fight in Invicta before I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to challenge for the title. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, which it might have been a little bit early for me to ask for the title. Some people might think, because I only had one fight in Invicta, but Invicta in general was a new promotion, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had what it took to win the atom weight title, and I had the fights under my belt, like I had the resume to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
I might have been the only person that thought that, maybe me and my team, because I was like a 10-1 underdog.
Yep.
And
Yep. I
everybody
remember.
kept saying that I was going to get smashed, that Jessica Penne was the bigger, smarter um, fighter. She was a brown belt in
Mm-hmm.
jiu-jitsu at the time. I had a clear belt. I had no belts. Um, but it didn't matter to me that I didn't have a belt. I mean, I had a lot of submissions under my, my invisible belt for my
Proverbial
MMA
belt.
record. Right. Like, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, just because I don't have a belt doesn't mean I don't know how to do jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but with that being said, that is kind of what introduced me to my professor, Professor Barata, was the fact that they're like, oh, she's a brown belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, she's gonna sub you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no way, she's not gonna sub me. And that's when I decided to basically I needed to know my opponent, right? If she was this amazing talented Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, I needed to be an amazing talented jiu-jitsu practitioner. So I
Mm-hmm.
started doing jiu-jitsu with Professor Barata, and we trained, and we made sure that we were prepared for every scenario possible. And we went into the fight 10-1 underdog, and it was definitely a war. She didn't want to give it up, and it went back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. And in the third round, she had me mounted for the better half of the round, and was trying to split my head open, raining down punches, and even went for a submission, and almost had it. And I just remember telling myself, like, if I can just, when I get through this, I'm coming up for air, and I'm gonna win,
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to escape the submission, and the round was over. And I guess in my head I was like, well, that's the worst of it, I guess. So at this
Yep.
point, we're cruising now, like it's downhill from now. And so
Mm-hmm.
um I went back to my corner, and they were like, well, basically they said the same thing: the worst is over, go out there and have fun. So I just I just kind of let all the pressure go, and I let go of all of the planning, and I kind of just told myself to be in the moment. And we hit the ground again, and uh I was trying to take her back, and she put me back down on the ground. And as she was putting me back on down on the ground, I swung around for an armbar and ended up submitting
Mm-hmm.
her to win the fight in the fourth round. And it was just such a beautiful moment, and something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I was going to ask you too, like because a lot of coaches will say, like, well, fighters are like, oh, my coach and I practiced that move over and over again. He called for it. I was going to ask, like, did you feel the armbar coming? Because I remember, like, yeah, I think that was a fourth round armbar, like two and
Yeah.
a half to go or something like that.
Mhm. You know what? It
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't. It wasn't planned, and it was a very unorthodox armbar. I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
take her back. I was trying to take her back, and so in the process of trying to take her back, she put me back down. But as she was putting me back, she exposed her arm, and like
Mm-hmm.
I had my foot was tucked, so it wasn't. It was a very unorthodox armbar. I didn't have my legs all the way around her shoulders, but I was tight enough to her shoulders that it was
Mm-hmm.
compromised. And so, it's
Yep.
always the moves that you don't expect that catch your opponent. Life hack, if you guys remember that. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's the unorthodox stuff that works, and that's why you know unorthodox fighters like Tony Ferguson, um,
Mm-hmm.
and Keith Jardine are so successful because they're unorthodox and you don't know what's coming.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't heard Dean the Mean in a long time. Like, like, yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
so cool.
original.
Yeah, I had to ask you because it just randomly popped up, and it was just it was just a random interview that I saw. And I was like, man, I haven't seen an interview or Invicta interview of Michelle, and oh my gosh, I mean, that was probably 10 years ago or something like that. I watched one of
It was
those
a long
things.
time
So
ago.
fun stuff. A long time ago. Well, speaking of a long time, three UFC main events and 14 fights, signed an 8 fight fight contract as of recently, I think about 2 fights ago or something like that. So you've
Yep.
been fighting in the UFC for a long time. Is there any fights that you particularly really, really want as we're kind of getting, kind of close to the end of the career, 38?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm excited to still be, in the upper echelons of the division, and still relevant. I've pretty much fought all the champions, and it might be a
Mm-hmm.
while until they give me another shot at that, just because of the way the cookie crumbles when you get to the top of the division. And so for me, I try to just savor the moment and not look too far into the future at this point in my career because like I said, I've definitely been blessed and have been able to have some amazing moments in the UFC already, and I just want to keep that momentum going, so kind of just stay in the moment and see what happens.
Yeah, makes all the sense in the world. Well, so we're gonna be seeing you April 27th. Just for your fans, God forbid, if they want to, if they're gonna be ordering the pay-per-view, I got the space of the link here. It's gonna be, you can get the tickets at my nitrotickets.com, tickets at nitrotickets.com. Fun stuff. And then and God forbid, if you want to order the pay-per-view, you can use the code Karate Hottie. It says but it's just Karate Hottie.
Just
And
karate
then
hottie for the code, guys, come on now.
yeah, they don't add that's a bit silly. And then a little too many extra letters. And then globally at TV at MCFCcombat.com. All the links will be in the bottom. God forbid if I forget anything. And it was really, really nice talking to you, Michelle. I gotta admit, it feels like I know you slightly. So I'm glad we get to talk before seeing you April 27th. And is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
I'm super excited to come out to the show. And I know you were asking earlier what the difference is between amateur fights and professional fights.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I learned really really early on is a fight's a fight. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's in the back alley or you're underneath the lights when a million people are watching. Like when you step
Mm-hmm.
into the octagon, you can't back out, and everything's
Yep.
on the line. The biggest difference I see with the amateurs is that they still haven't figured out their jitters. And some of them have,
Mm-hmm.
some of these amateurs now that are coming into the game have been training MMA since they were 5 or 6. And so they have a more well-rounded view of what MMA is. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exciting to me to see the evolution of what MMA is from when I started MMA, with the single uh, skill that was kind of like my specialty versus now these MMA stars are coming in as complete MMA fighters already in the amateur circuit. So
Mm-hmm.
that to me is one of the biggest difference. The time difference too, like the difference between 3 minutes and 5 minutes is huge, and it changes the strategy of a fight. And so the pace in an amateur fight is a lot faster as
Mm-hmm.
well. So it will be interesting to be able to commentate on both of those things, but they're both super entertaining. It's not something that you should not watch just because they're amateurs. A lot of times the most fun fights are the amateur fights because
Yep.
um, you know, these guys are coming in, they're excited, they're anxious to show the world who they are. And so they, a lot of times these amateur fighters have their highlight careers in their amateur fights because they're just wanting to show the world who they are.
Makes all the sense in the world. Well, so nice talking to you, Michelle. Have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you real soon. And thanks again.
No problem. Thank you guys. Make sure you tune into the fights. We're excited to see you. I'm excited to see you there. All right.
See ya.
Bye.